George of the jungle, strong as he can be.
Okay, so we're going to come right back. This is part 2 of Guess Who Wants to Be a Landlord. You know, they have a saying in Utah. It says everybody wants to become a landlord until you actually become one. You know, just on a personal note, I went through that phase kind of back in the 90s, and at one point I had 16 doors, you know, between a duplex and a multi-unit property and then some single-family residences and everything else, and I really sucked at being a landlord. I would have made more money having a part-time job and not dealing with, you know, repairs and collecting rent and everything else. Anyway, and I sold all of my rental properties. I sold the last one by 2001, and then I just basically had some land and did some other stuff that way, purchased and sold some land, did a couple of little small subdivisions, but I didn't get back into rental properties again until about 2016, and that's when I figured out a better way to do it. And that's another video if anybody has questions on how to basically own rental property without being a landlord. For me, that's the way to do it. But you got to find the right type of people, and I have a way of doing that as well. But let's go and we're going to change one thing here, and I'm going to go through FHA and VA loans. So what if you have an FHA loan on your existing home and you want to get into the new house? In other words, you want to keep this house as your rental, get into the next one. So again, USDA says, well, no, you can't keep one house and buy another one. So USDA is still out. FHA is going to be the same thing. You actually can have 2 FHA loans at the same time. But again, you're going to have to meet this 100-mile distance, and it has to be for employment-related purposes. And then you can actually count some of the cash flow off of that property to help you qualify for the new one. And it's going to be the same thing for Fannie Mae. Again, they're just looking at, you're getting a conventional loan here, so the guidelines here depend on this. And then again, for Freddie Mac and for VA, same thing again. It's going to be a wash. So no difference really in any of this that you have an FHA loan. But what does change here is that if this loan that you have on this house ends up being a VA loan. So now in Utah, we also have what are called Utah housing loans. And some loans where you may have gotten a grant, maybe you got some down payment assistance, or you got a bond loan from the state that you live in the state of Utah, it's called Utah Housing. You cannot convert this home into a rental property. It has to stay and remain an owner-occupied residence. And if you got some kind of a grant, like a block grant community development loan, that was some down payment assistance, if they find out that you moved out of that and you've got tenants in there and you bought a different house, they can go and call the note due on that and make life really miserable for you. So you got to make sure that you don't have one of those other types of financing agreements that you got in on this home for some kind of down payment assistance that would prevent you from converting it to a rental property. But what if you do have a VA loan on here? Well, everything else again here remains the same except for VA. So would VA allow you to have 2 homes on here? Okay, so this is a big maybe, and I'm not going to get into all the details on this, but technically you have a certain amount of eligibility that is tied up under this loan, and you have to make a determination of what is the value of this loan and how much of a guarantee. So the equity that you have in this loan, you're going to have to determine the value of this home with an appraisal, and then figure out how much of the VA guarantee that you have on this house would be tied up, what's the minimum amount there that would give you some additional entitlement towards the next home. So you may end up getting what's called, VA has what they call partial entitlement loans, and you might be able to actually convert that to a rental, get into another VA loan here, but you're probably going to end up having to have a down payment. That down payment's going to be determined by your eligibility that you have for the next one. And there's some formulas in that, and I think that that's just diving into it too much. But it's possible to do it, but in all likelihood, you'd probably just be better off doing a conventional loan. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, if you have 5% down, just do the 5% down, get into this one. no questions asked, and you can actually convert this house, if you had a VA loan on it, VA is perfectly okay, and FHA if you've lived in the home for at least 6 months that you want to get into the next home. So those are the options based on what type of underlying mortgage you have and what type of mortgage you're proposing to get on this one. And this is how you can become a landlord without having to put down 20% on a rental property. So hopefully that helps answer some questions for you. Remember, you can push button, get mortgage professional. This is George Anderson at thecreditjungle.com. And I'd love to talk to you about your situation and try to make sense of this and figure out how it actually works for you. Because when you're in the process of doing it, these numbers might look a little bit intimidating and whatnot, but trust me, just like when I'm showing a client their own credit report, they're paying attention because it's their credit report. When it's your scenario and I'm walking through the numbers, it'll make sense to you. Have a great day.